Hi guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and welcome to another episode of Shoe Review and a Message, of course. I am talking about one of the most effective weapons that I've discovered when you are in a battle or you're at war. But first, let's look at the shoes. I will do a shoe review at the end, but since we are getting started with, I'll call this the bookends. We start at the beginning with a little snippet, we end with it, and then of course the bulk of what I do is always talking. You know, that's sort of my thing. So we have a gorgeous pair of heels. And these were sent by a friend and viewer and supporter. And this brand is a very beautiful brand. Oh goodness. Now maybe before I film the very end of this, I will get myself refreshed on what her website said, but I absolutely love that she is doing her own shoe business and that this is supportive of an entrepreneur. Her name is Sarah Lilas Massimo, and the shoes came in this beautiful box and, you know, even a ribbon with her initials across it. Really pretty. And this part you may not care about, but you know, it's details. We love details, right? At least I love details. So they each came in a sleeve. And this is a beautiful pair of pink mules. I absolutely think they are gorgeous. Look at even on the bottom, her initials here. Whoops, I guess that was backwards. There we go. I think they are absolutely beautiful. And you'll notice that my toes are matching and my nails. So I love the color so much. And so I thought, I actually took the shoe to the nail salon and told them, you know, I want to match this shoe. So anyway, very pretty. I will do a shoe review toward the end and a runway walk. But can I go to war in a pair of pink high heels? You bet I can. So, all right. Thanks for putting up with my unusual way of presenting things, my presentation, but I really am very glad that you're here with me. And so let's move on to the conversation, and then I will see you at the end. Do not fast forward. As per usual, my multi-direction things that funnel in to my topic, I was getting bits of things from all over the place, which I really love when that happens because it really seems to fold into some kind of cohesiveness. I was talking to my friend about sometimes I feel like I'm fragmented, and I also will sometimes question if how I present myself out in the world is true to who people who know me behind the scenes, how that coincides. And, you know, we've talked about this before. Of course, you don't share every detail of your life with the public. I mean, it's just normal that we're supposed to have various levels of what we share with people and whatnot. But, you know, am I being consistent? It's very important to me that I'm consistent. And a lot of times, the things that I'm warring with are within myself. And a lot of it is maybe warring over things that are lies, or perhaps I am going through a growth season. And so I am supposed to be kind of in this little battle tension where I'm trying to figure things out. A lot of us include, and I'm saying us because this is me for sure, will escape from that battle or that tension or that growth period because sometimes it's hard. It's hard to self-reflect. It's hard to be honest with yourself. It's hard to try to really look at your life objectively and decide, I need to make changes, or no, actually I am okay, but I really need to process through some things so that I can continue on the right path, or what have you. And a lot of times that inner war or battle that we go through, the easier solution in our mind at the moment is escape. And so we take different ways of doing that sometimes, through drugs or alcohol, through social media or our phone, through just making ourselves super busy. It's easy for me when I have a big long to-do list and I just knock things off. But when I have to sit and be still and wait, sometimes that is the challenge, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, I am really having to face some things and I am not cluttered. And a lot of it is we have to choose to declutter in all different aspects, physically, very important to declutter, very important to create physical space, but also within ourselves to be able to create that space. And I was thinking about this as one of the things that I am kind of processing through at this moment in time. And sometimes it really does feel like a battle, because I will come to a moment where I am like, almost feel like my insides are bristling. I was telling my friend, I just feel like I'm bristling, and even get short-tempered with the people near me. And it's funny because I'll ask them and they're like, no, you're fine. But so it must be more internally that I'm just feeling that way. But I'm like, okay, rather than go drink a glass of wine or get busy looking at social media, let me sit with this. Let me determine where this is all coming from. And I think that this is really important for us. So any of you that have been around for a while and you are not just passing by, and if you are just passing by and here to look at a pair of high heels or watch a shoe review, I'm very glad you're here. And I know that we are all kind of at different points in our lives, and sometimes we have a lot of pain that we're dealing with, and so we are just trying to escape. And I don't find fault with wherever you are in your process and journey. So if that's you, thanks for just being here and listening for a moment. But a lot of you that have been around for a while, I know that people have told me that they may have come because of the high heels, but they stay because there's more to it than that. And that is my joy. I love having the more superficial, beautiful, joyful things that are maybe temporary. A lot of these things, they could go away. But then I love having the depth of things that we can talk about. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing those things together, and that God created all those things beautifully to come together. And so as I talk about these kinds of things and really kind of go deeper, I hope that you'll consider it for yourself. I share with you what I am going through and the thought processes that I have, and kind of how I come to where I am in my life. And I'm never going to be perfect, but I think that we all feel better when we are in a growth pattern. And a lot of factors contribute to growth. Interestingly, one of the areas that contributes to growth is waiting. And I believe that really one of our really effective tools to overcoming things, to winning a battle, is in the weight. And I'm going to kind of delve into that a little bit from some different aspects that may or may not be something that you would normally think of. I think a lot of times we want to feel like we are actively doing something. There's in Atomic Habits, James Clear, the author, talks about action and motion. A lot of times we are in a lot of, where there's a lot of motion going on, but we're not actually taking action. And all of that motion tends to fill space, but it doesn't actually propel us forward. So there's a weird dichotomy here with being active, but also being active while you wait. And I was thinking about this because I was listening to a video and they were talking about some techniques for similar to this topic I'm talking about. And I thought, yeah, I totally agree with what they were saying, but I also was kind of looking at it from my own perspective. And I've kind of, four things came to my head. They all start with an S, which, you know, is, I always love it when that happens because somehow it helps click into your brain. So you have something for your brain to grab a hold of. So I was like, you know what? Sometimes in war, we have to fight, but a lot of times the fight comes in the waiting. And how do you wait? I was talking to my girlfriend who, a long time ago actually, and she was like, well, you know, waiting is active. And I thought, oh, is that not true? Because waiting does require action. And I almost equate it to fasting. When you fast, you are not eating, right? But there is so much going on in your body actively that is healing you, that not only just physically, but mentally, emotionally, psychologically, there's a lot of that is all an active thing that's happening while you're doing nothing, right? It's not really nothing. But I love that because in our society, we tend to be so driven by it, the to-do list type of mentality, that sometimes we forget that our strongest weapons come in things that require action, but in a little different way. Surrender was the first thought I had when it came to waiting. I have noticed in my life how many areas I will try to grab hold tighter of. And in that grabbing hold tighter, I will find myself more wound up and more bristly, because opening up and saying, you know what, in my world, that means opening up to God and saying, you are sovereign, meaning you know what I don't know. You have control over all the things that I might even think I have control over, but I don't. Sovereign means you are in control. You ultimately have the best plan, and I can surrender to you during this time where I am actively waiting. Surrender is a very difficult concept, but I have found people that God has brought into my life that have helped me to learn how to actively surrender, but it's day by day by day. My one friend is like, it's a new day tomorrow, a new day. And each day we get to learn. Each day we get to change the way that we maybe view a situation, a way that we handle a situation. And I find one of the most beautiful things that happens inside of me is a sense of peace when I surrender. And that we could go into a lot of depth on that, because there are different ways of surrendering. But a lot to me has to do with taking the focus off of me and turning my focus back to saying, God, you'll rescue me. You know the way. You know the things that I don't already know. You know how to lead me on a path that to me is kind of unknown. It feels a little scary if I really think about it, because I'm not really sure if I'm making all the right choices and decisions. But I know that you know, you've already gone before me. And he says this to you too. He's already gone before you. He knows what's ahead. And so when we surrender and say, okay, I'm going to trust that you're going to take me where I need to go. You're going to bring the people into my life that I need to help me on that path. You're going to bring the right situations. And sometimes you're going to allow me to go into that little war where I can learn what it is I am still trying to control or hold on to that I need to surrender. Equally important is submit. And submit is very similar, but just slightly different. Submitting is taking some active things that we know that we are holding on to and setting them down and saying, you know, I submit it to you. I know this is an issue for me, and I'm ready. And I think that submission is sometimes considered a weakness to people. I have a friend who we've had a lot of conversations around this, because it's fascinating to me how often women will run from, and I've talked about this in other videos. So if you're, you know, like, I've heard this a million times. Yeah, me too, because that's something that I think and talk about a lot. But a lot of times women run from that because it's a verse in the Bible that talks about submitting. And yet they don't realize how much power is in submission, how much joy is in submission, how much it's a beautiful fit when you understand what it really is about. And so submitting is an active thing. It is not saying, walk all over me, I am dirt and I am not worthy of anything. It is something that is an active thing that you do as a heart issue. Heart issues are really tricky because we hold on to a lot of stuff that's not really good for us or is really not benefiting us. And in submission and trust, you find a lot of peace. And so surrendering, submitting, then seeking as another aspect to the weight that I think is really important. When you seek God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, He will never turn you away. He will always be there. It may take you through a valley, because most of the time when we go through valleys, that's when we start building muscle and strength. But He will always be with us as we go through the valley. There's a song by the Fray, and he sings about, you know, the only way out is through. And so a lot of times we try to get out by all of these escape mechanisms and everything, and yet the only way out is through. And so as we go through the battle, go through the difficulty, go through it, and actively seek God. Where are you? What is it that you want me to learn about you? What is it that I need to learn about me? God is faithful. He will always provide what we need. I have found that one of the main ways that He does that is two main ways, is through His word. He will repeatedly take me to places that remind me that I'm not alone, that He has got me, that He is providing the way. He also reminds me and teaches me to remember about things where He has been with me in the past, because that's super important that we don't forget, you know, all of the past things that we've been through and where it has brought us to today. But the other way that he does this is through people. And I think that we sometimes get very stuck on thinking, oh, I lost this person came in and out of my life, and that was painful because they're not there anymore, or whatever the case is. God brings people into our lives, sometimes for seasons and sometimes for life, but those are times that we are given opportunities to grow, and even if it's challenging. So sometimes you get people that come into your life for a season and they challenge you, and you get to choose. Am I going to allow this to show me more about myself, show me more about what I need to do? Maybe it reveals some things if you're honest. That's my fourth one, self-reflect. What is the reason for that? And allowing that season where the tide goes in and out, the ebb and the flow. And then there are some people that are meant to kind of come in and out, or you feel like they were there for a season and then they come back later, or maybe their season is done with you, and that's okay too. And then there's people that come and they stay, and you are able to continually feed each other truth. And that's where the self-reflect comes in. I've mentioned this, and I don't remember if I mentioned it in a YouTube video or if it was on a Patreon live stream, but I have someone that had sent me a message saying that he wished that he was as obedient as me. And that kind of triggered a little feeling inside of me. And I thought, I wonder why he thinks that I am better than him in that area. And I think he meant disciplined and following after God and things like that. And I thought, maybe I project something out there in the world that is different than who I am. And I asked a friend, and he was like, no, you're who you are is what you put out there. And, I talked to some other people who have told me, no, obviously we have to keep certain aspects of our lives more private. I have a family, and I'm not going to just, talk about all of the things that go on. But am I true to being a humble servant of God? Am I doing my part, or am I putting on airs? And I think that in that self-reflection, it's really important, because sometimes there are certain aspects that we need to fine tune, and we have to be willing to surrender and submit to God and say, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm being a little phony in this or that area or whatever. But also to have people that are close to you that can help you shine the light on the lies that you tell yourself. And if you're anything like me, a lot of the lies go like this. Well, you blew it again, so you shouldn't be out there doing whatever you're doing. You try to do this and then you get sidetracked, and that's because you're a failure. You are not enough, or you are too much. So it's always the battle of, gosh, am I enough, or am I just way too much for somebody? And I love that people that God puts in our lives, especially in certain seasons when you need to hear it the most, remind you, you know what? Those are lies. You are who you say you are. You are the person that you portray. And even if we're not, even if there are aspects of us that need to be redirected or maybe refined, just like diamonds. I mean, they have to go through a lot of refining for them to be shiny. It's okay if you are not perfect right now, that doesn't stop you from what God had in mind for you or what God has intended for you. There's a verse in the Bible that I think is very important for you to hear. God created you for such a time as this. It is not an accident that you are on the earth at this moment in time, in this year, in this day, in this month. It is not an accident that He designed you before you were even put in your mother's womb. He knew what you were going to look like. He knew all of your personality traits, and He loved you, and He designed you beautifully and wonderfully the way that He chose to. Whether you're tall or short, fat or skinny, whether you get impatient easily, whether you are super emotional, whether you are weak or strong, whatever, God designed you, and He designed you for such a time as this. So don't ever think that you are beyond hope, that you don't have purpose, that there is no good reason for you, and that you're just floating through this life. You are not. And if you are here listening to my voice right now, there's a reason that you are, because I believe that there's something inside of you that either needs to start believing truth and forgetting some of the lies that you've been telling yourself, or you need to be willing to think about whatever war or battle is going on within you, that sometimes your most effective weapon is going to be through the active waiting. And that active waiting is the surrender, submitting, seeking, and self-reflecting, because it is in that process that we oftentimes push through to a new level, and that is critical to our growth, to our purpose, and everything. So I would encourage you not to try to escape, not to use something to just take your mind off of it again for another day, week, month, or year, but to stop and say, okay, wait, wait, and do some of these active waiting techniques to try to help you change your thought process, help you change and move forward. I've said this before many times. Mules are stubborn, and we have on a pair of mules here. The mules, I always think is interesting, because there's the Bible verse that talks about don't be a mule, don't be stubborn. And a lot of times that stubborn mule quality that we have is what sort of keeps us out of what is best for us. So really try to think about, if you are in a struggle right now, you're not alone. I have noticed it for myself. In the past, I would really try to escape. Lately, I have been trying to be really honest. I have, core people that I talk to about it, and they shine light. They remind me of who I am. They remind me about the lies that I'm telling myself. But it doesn't work if you're not honest. It doesn't work if you are just trying to hide or distract yourself or whatever. There are reasons that you are at this point. And I don't want you to ever give up hope that you are beyond hope, because you're not. And God is there. He is with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. And He has good plans for you. And a lot of times these things we go through are because we are building muscle. We are learning and growing, but it can even happen in the waiting. Father God, thank you for giving us so much that is beyond our wildest imaginations, and that you created all the wonderful people here that are listening to the sound of my voice. You created them before they were even in their mother's womb. You had them in mind. You already knew the path for them. You designed them exactly the way that they are. And I pray that you would help them to recognize that, to feel that, and to really embrace that for themselves so that they can move forward in the best ways for their lives, for their health, for their well-being. And I just pray for a special blessing on anyone here who might have given up hope, because you are not a God that ever lets go of us. And you are a God of hope, and you anchor us in your love. And I just pray that you would help that person to feel that deep love that you have for them, and that you are never going to give up on them. I just thank and praise you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, let's go take a review and runway walk. I will meet you downstairs. Okay, so Patreon came with me for a walk through my yard, sitting in my rocker. So I have walked around in these, and they are so comfortable and not hard to walk in whatsoever. Again, as I said at the beginning, this is Sarah Lilas Massimo. And let's see if I can get the correct angle here. It's a 6.5, and they're really beautiful, well made. They're gorgeous pink. I don't know what color of pink you would call this, but I have talked in my Patreon live stream about I wanted to be Barbie when I grew up, when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, pink just is Barbie, right? The other thing with this is this beautiful gold toe, which I think is such a nice accent on that. They are, oh, you know what I didn't get was the tape measure. Okay, hold on, let's go get the tape measure. You would think that I would remember to bring the tape measure with me. Okay, so let's see here. We have, that is a 5-inch heel, and not hard to walk in. So I love them, and I am going to tell you a little bit about the designer. Okay, so I just needed to refresh because I had read this and then I thought I better make sure that I have my facts correct. So it is a Black female-owned company. In 2020 it was started. They are made to order. So once you decide what style and size and everything, then they will make them. But their goal is to help people that are trying to live an intentional lifestyle. And I love that because that is one of my goals always in life, is to be intentional, which is what this video and a lot of what I do is all about. Not just floating through life, but being intentional. And yes, intentional can even include relaxing, beautiful things, waiting. You know, a lot of times we think of being intentional as being a certain type of active movement all the time. Again, going back to motion versus action. And a lot of times it is that intentional aspect of things is the waiting, the surrendering, the submitting, the waiting for things to kind of work themselves out, waiting on God to help us see things differently, whatever the case is. But being intentional is a big deal. So I love that that is part of their statement. And you know, what a great thing to be able to support a small business. I think that that's really important that we do that, especially in this day and age. So that is the story behind the shoe. And if you're interested in where to get this type of shoe. They have different styles. I will link the information in the section below the video so that you can go check it out for yourself. All right, let's do a runway walk.